When your revenue has basically plummeted, the normal financial advice is basically useless. In the next 6 minutes, I'm going to tell you why the normal financial advice doesn't work in a downturn and give you 5 things that you can do today to help you survive until revenue picks back up. Plus, at the end, a 6th step on how to save on taxes now before you even file your next year's tax return. Let's jump in. The problem with financial advice is that once you go looking for it, it's probably already too late. Nobody looks up how do I survive a downturn whenever things are good. And the advice that you would normally find is to set aside all the money that you have from your surplus to cover the down months. But by the time you're looking for that advice, there is no surplus. My go-to advice for smoothing out seasonal revenue is implementing a system called Profit First, where you set aside money into different bank accounts for different purposes, but one of the bank accounts that you set aside money into is a surplus account for those good months, so that whenever the bad months come, you've got the money to cover it. But implementing Profit First in a bad month doesn't help you smooth out those bad months because there is no surplus to pull from. I know a lot of authors right now who have experienced a big drop in royalties more than they normally see. And setting aside money from the good months will be great advice a few months from now whenever the revenue starts coming back. But for now, that advice is kind of useless. So what are the 5 things that you should be doing? The first step is to find your floor. What that means is you want to know exactly how much money you need to actually run your business. And this is different from our normal expense analysis, where we're trying to identify the expenses that add to our profitability. Instead, this is kind of the break glass in case of emergency situation, where we want to know what's the bare minimum you absolutely have to pay for to keep the lights on. So we're thinking less about your Canva subscription and more about your website hosting fees. I'll give you a personal example. If I have software that helps me edit my YouTube videos, that software cost is helping me save time and save money in the long run because it's less time that it's taking me to actually record videos. But if I didn't have that expense, would it mean that my business would have to close? No, it just means that I'd have to take longer to edit my own videos or just do less editing. This part's uncomfortable because you're going to have to leave things off of the list that you really do like having, and things that are probably helping your business. But what we're trying to get at here is the bare minimum, what you absolutely have to run your business. So again, I know that this is uncomfortable. This is not an indictment on your business. This is not saying that you made a bad decision. This is just us trying to get clarity over what our business actually needs in an emergency situation. Step 2, you're gonna make a second list of all the expenses that you're actually paying for right now. List everything, good, bad, or ugly. Again, this isn't the point in time to make judgments on whether or not these are good expenses. This is just data on a page or a spreadsheet. All right, step 3 is look through that list of all the expenses that you're paying that are not also on the list of things that you absolutely need to run your business. That gap, those expenses that aren't on the list from step 1, those are the things that are going to try to either pause or cancel. Sort that list biggest to smallest and start finding out if you can actually pause your subscription or pause your payments for certain things. A lot of times you can do that with certain software or certain platforms. That way you don't lose your profile, you don't lose all your information, you don't lose your data. You just pause the billing. Maybe you can't access it for the months that it's paused, but then at least you don't lose all the things that you've accrued up until that point. Step 4, everything else on that list, just cancel it, just cut it. If it's not something that's going to totally mess things up for your business by canceling it, just get rid of it. It's temporary. You can always sign back up for whatever it is. They'll take your money. Even if it's one of these things where you've got some grandfathered special pricing, still consider cutting it, because if you do lose that grandfathered pricing, but you're paying for it in months that you don't need it or aren't using it, you're probably still coming out of pocket more by paying for it at the old pricing than you would save by just getting it later when you actually need it. You probably actually identify some of the things in step 2 and making the list of all your expenses where you sort of say, oh yeah, I forgot I was paying for this. So some of this might actually be easier than you think. Keep in mind, if you've already made it this far with this expense, you've already determined that you actually don't need this to run your business, and it's not something that you can just pause and use later. So it probably is something that you should just consider getting rid of anyway. Step 5, and this part might be the most uncomfortable part, is that you really need to get honest about what position your business is in. You need to calculate your ramp. What does that mean? All that means is if you take the money that you have today and you forecast out your average royalties that you're getting in minus your actual expenses, how long will it last until your money is just gone? This part's scary because you might find that you only have a couple of months before you run out of money. But you have to remember that looking at it doesn't make it worse. If anything, if you don't look at it, then you don't have an opportunity to fix it. On the other hand, you might look at it and realize that things aren't as bad as you thought. Maybe you have enough money to get by until holiday season whenever sales and royalties should pick back up. But you could do the math at this point, now that you've done the exercise, on just how many days every expense that you cut buys you. As a pro tip here, whenever you're looking forward at your upcoming expenses and you're doing your projections, if you think about the things that bill annually, you might want to actually change those to monthly billing if you have a large annual bill coming up. For example, if you're paying for Canva and you have the annual subscription and you know that that annual subscription is coming due next month, you might choose to switch to the monthly billing, even if it technically costs you more per year. If it buys you a couple of extra months to get to the holiday time, then you could always switch back to the annual subscription whenever you actually have the money to pay for it. Now, I promised you a sixth tip that has to do with taxes. If you are paying quarterly estimated taxes and those estimates were based on last year's income, you may be paying too much in quarterly estimates. If your income is nowhere near where it was last year and your expenses are around the same, then your tax bill probably won't be as much as it was, and so your quarterly estimates, which were again based on last year's income, might not be accurate. You could reevaluate where you are in your tax projections and possibly reduce or even stop making those quarterly estimated payments. If you would like for us to take a look and see if you are on track with your quarterly estimates, I'm going to put a link in the description to contact us. As you go through all this, just keep in mind that cutting expenses is not you admitting that you did anything wrong or that your business is failing. We should all actually be actively cutting expenses every single quarter in our business, whether or not revenue is good or bad. So this is just you reacting as a business owner and pivoting to an environment that you didn't create. Now, if this is not you, if you watch this video and you actually have not experienced a downturn, you're in some good months for your royalties, then use this as an opportunity to start setting aside some of that surplus in another account so that you have a buffer there. If you're not sure how much of a buffer to set up, I would start with just 1 month's worth of expenses, because then you know even in a downturn, you've got an entire month's ramp, even if nothing else happens. Let everybody know in the comments if you ever had to cut something for your business to save you some time, what it was. It'll help give everyone some ideas of things that they could cut. If you want to work with other authors and find out what other people are cutting in their businesses, also check out the link in the description for our author community where you can collaborate with other authors, and I will see you next time.